Hi, guess what? We're going fishing again. This episode, we're going to take a break from bass fishing for another week. I'm still mad at losing my bass lure, so we're going to go visit some of my favorite spots. I've got a long personal history with the lake we're going to visit, going back to 1971. I usually don't care to provide the names of the lakes where I fish for wild native fish, but today I am going to name the lake Kennedy because it's the biggest lake on Vancouver Island, but there are almost no water skiers or jet skis. It's right beside the highway, but it receives almost zero fishing pressure. It has kilometers of spectacular free beach campsites, but almost nobody uses them because it takes a boat to access them. The lake used to have stupendous runs of wild sockeye and coho and chinook and steelhead and Searun cutthroat trout, plus a lot of resident cutthroat trout. There used to be so many fish, there was a commercial salmon cannery where the lake flows out into the ocean. That's why it's called Cannery Bay. Those fish are mostly gone now. It's got to the point where I was launching my boat there a few years ago and a local yokel was mocking me when I told him I was going out fishing. He called it the Dead Sea. And I happened to get skunked that day, so I started calling it the Dead Sea too. We'll see about that. Let's go. I don't really mind getting skunked. I hope you folks out there in TV fishing land won't mind either, because I'm headed over to such a dreamboat camping spot. It's a real special place, and you can only hope to capture a fraction of the wild spirit that drips off this landscape with a GoPro and an amateur cameraman. It's September and the weather is iffy, so I'm going to set up camp before I go fishing. I have a tent, but I probably won't need it because I'll be sleeping inside a giant tree where it's always dry. Almost. Always watch out for deadheads on this lake. A deadhead is a log or tree with one end sunken underwater and only the very tip projecting above the surface. In this lake, we're mostly talking about big trees broken off by raging floods and then washed down rivers into the lake. The heavy root wads drag deep on the bottom, and the broken tops are barely visible on the surface. They're called deadheads because if you hit one in a boat, you die. Maybe that's why there are no water skiers here.
Humpty's tip of the day!
Don't run into a deadhead.
Humpty's tip of the day!
Lots of deadheads in this lake. You don't want to hit one in the fog. This is a huge cedar tree. Its roots might be down 40, 60 feet and washed in during a flood down one of the rivers years ago. Just the broken off top is all that's left. And there's a whole little world growing out of it. A whole ecosystem of little creatures that live their entire life. And they don't know nothing about Twitter or Paris Hilton. There's one rapids between the lake and the ocean. During winter, the monsoon rains can't get through this spot fast enough, so the entire lake backs up from here to the upper Kennedy River. The lake level may rise 3 or 4 meters or even more during a single day. That's maybe 15 feet in one day. And that is a lot of water when you're talking about the biggest lake on Vancouver Island. Over 100 kilometers of shoreline that is periodically underwater. That's where I'm going to camp. And here we are. I'm taking the rear entrance that leads to the parking lot for my 5-star Hollow Cedar Resort Hotel. But the parking area is cluttered up with driftwood. I'll have to go around to the front. Now I parked on the beach right in front of my spot, and I'm walking through this intertidal flood zone that might be 10 feet underwater within 24 hours, depending on the weather. I hope that doesn't happen tonight, but it's something you always have to be prepared for if you venture into a spot like this. It's only a few minutes to the Mother Volvo in my boat, but maybe 20 miles on foot without a boat. There used to be an ancient forest of giant old-growth cedar around this lake, but it was almost all clear-cut by the end of the last century, including the area right behind this beach. But the loggers would occasionally leave a few old trees that grew right along the shore if they were too gnarly and hollow to be worth cutting down. You can see a few of these old veterans here. The multiple dead spiked tops are characteristic of old cedars. The tree on the left is hollow at the base. It's also going to be my home away from Volvo tonight. I've already got my campfire going, and I'm loading my camping stuff into my hollow hostel. I've been building campfires on this exact spot for almost 40 years. It always stays dry inside the tree, unless you get a really huge storm. And even then, you can still set up your tent inside the tree. Heck, you can set up 2 tents inside this tree. I used to have to sit on driftwood, but now they've invented these $10 Walmart folding lawn chairs. Luxury living at a discount price. This chair has been all over North America with me. Well, I have my camp set up, and I said hello again to my old friend the tree. Let's head back to the lake. One of the cool things about this campsite is that you can hear the fish jumping from the luxury of your lawn chair. I've been sitting by my campfire listening to them splash, so I know they're out here. This bush I'm walking through didn't used to be here. Before most of the big logs were beachcombed off this lake, there used to be, oh, here's the raven. No, it's heron. No, that's not the raven. It's my friend Heron, flying over to say hello and check me out. Morning, Heron. As I was saying, this used to be open beach here. It's growing back into brush, salmonberry, alder, and soon into forest again. Because the hundreds and thousands of big drift logs that used to be on this lake have been harvested, taken away to sawmills, and they don't pound around and rototill these beaches anymore in winter storms when the lake is flooded, as they once did. And it gives these plants a chance to grow back. So that beachcombing, from what I see, has changed the entire ecology of Kennedy Lake. There was one rising. They'll be right out here. There's a big shallow gravel bar off the mouth of this creek, and a big reed bed grows out of it. Those fish I heard splashing were either coho salmon returning from the ocean to spawn in the creek, or cutthroat trout also returning from the ocean to gorge on the eggs of the spawning coho. Hey, there's a riser. Let's go fish over there. This is totally haywire because I was still experimenting with mounts for my GoPro. Here it's mounted on a tripod, sitting on the floor of the boat. But as soon as I move to one side of the boat or the other, the tripod wants to tip over into the water. You'd think the cameraman would have anticipated this. So I have to sit in the middle of the boat and reach way out to net the fish without dumping the GoPro overboard. These cutthroat trout migrate back and forth between the lake and the ocean. They spend most of their time feeding along shallow beaches in the fjords, but they follow the spawning cohos around and wait for the feast. Well, at least I didn't get skunked on this trip. and I may have to reconsider calling this lake the Dead Sea.
Kennedy Lake cutthroat. There used to be lots here.
Both cohos and cutties are a member of a family of fish known as suckers. Suckers cannot resist biting on flashy spinners. That's why they're called suckers. And here's another nice fish. This one is a small coho. Soon it will spawn in the creek that runs behind the huge hollow cedar. And in a month, it will be dead and rotten. But right now, it's fresh from the sea and gleaming silver. I may have to stop calling this the Dead Sea. You can see how close I came to losing the camera. Only the cat-quick reflexes of the star of the show averted another disaster caused by the idiot cameraman. You people out there in video land think it's so easy to produce these fishing shows. It's not easy. Here you can see me downloading the day's video from the GoPro onto my tiny computer, which is on my sleeping bag inside the giant hollow cedar. This tree was already hundreds of years old before the first European explorers visited this land. When it was a tiny sapling, who could have imagined that one day there would be a movie studio set up inside it? This night did not end well.
I'm back at Kennedy Lake. I was here camping a couple of nights ago on the opposite side of the lake. Got caught in a torrential downpour about 2 o'clock in the morning and had to bail out at dawn. A few days later now, the lake is just starting to peak. It's not raining anymore. It hasn't rained for a couple days, but the lake is just cresting from that recent rain. And that rain should have brought in a whole bunch of cohos, cutthroat trout, jacks, who knows. Gonna go drive around, look at a couple creek mouths, and see if I can catch some fish. This beach used to be full of spawning sockeye at this time of year. They would spawn in this gravel. They'd spawn in the lake, not in the river. It rains so much here in the winter that the rainwater soaks through the gravel and it comes bubbling up a lot, especially along this shore of the lake by the highway. Used to be thousands of sockeye spawning along here. I think they're pretty much extinct now. These beach spawners have gone the way of a lot of things that aren't here anymore that used to be here when I came back to South Kennedy Lake. We're out in front of another one of the creek mouths here at Kennedy Lake. In August, there's a huge beach here, beautiful gravel beach. You could put up a football stadium on the beach here. It's all underwater right now after these big rains. The water's all murky. It might be a good time to fish. This isn't the right spot. I got confused. The creek mouth I was looking for is over here, not over there. I got that deadhead confused with this one. It's easy to do. Deadheads all look alike. Not that I have anything against deadheads. Some of my best friends are deadheads. But the creek mouth is over here.
With single barbless hooks, you'll miss a lot of strikes, but at least you know the fish is out there. As opposed to doing great harm to the fish in order to get a great picture or video, I'd rather lose a fish on a single barbless hook and come back and catch it later.
There's a fish, I think. Oh yeah. Cutthroat. That's what we're here for. Oh, he got off. Nice cutthroat. About that big. Never get your deadheads confused. They're here. Cutthroat. That's a beauty. Silver Searun. Didn't get him into the camera view though. They're here though. Not a big one. 13 inches maybe. Where there's one.
I may have to stop calling this the Dead Sea. Well, there's an encouraging sign. Strike one. You can see I'm getting closer to the magic deadhead, and I just got another bite. This seems to be working. Let's try it again. If these fish don't stop biting on my meps, I might have to stop calling this the Dead Sea. Maybe it's just that the lake goes up and down so much and the fish move in and out. Maybe it's more like the hard to find them sea. There's another one, and they keep getting bigger. This one's at least 18 inches, and a real jumper too.
That looks like a dandy cutthroat. Way up in the air. Look at that nice tentacle big cut.
But it races past the camera, leaps as high as my waist, and the hook comes flying out of its mouth again. Watch it come flying back and stick right into my vest. Another good thing about barbless spinners is that you can catch and release yourself without damaging your clothes.
Beauty. Perils of single barbless. It's a barbed hook. Take my little Dremel grinder and I grind that barb off where it's polished smooth. That was right behind the camera. It was that far in midair. Oh. That was a Searun cutthroat.
Well, I covered the outside edge of the beach. Let's head in shallower. In summer, it's way too shallow to hold fish there, but today they could be right up against the grass. There's one now, a nice silver jack coho. A jack is a male salmon that matures a year earlier than most of its siblings, so they're much smaller, but still getting ready to spawn and die. And another fish that spits my spinner out in midair. I'm glad I'm not getting paid by the pound. You can see the boat rocking around. One big problem with this lake is that the main boat ramp where I launched is exposed to horrific winds and waves. It might be glassy calm when you launch, but within an hour the waves can build up to the point that you cannot possibly get the boat back on the trailer.
Well, looks like our fishing is about over. Another southeaster blowing up here. Time to get the gauge off of this lake.
But I have time for one more cast, so I throw it right in the mouth of the flooded creek.
There's a nice fish.
That is a shining silver coho, about 5 or 6 pounds. But the wind is blowing my boat right into the bushes. The bottom is littered with branches and logs, and the boat is bouncing around in the waves. What could possibly go wrong? I have to turn on the electric motor and back away from the bushes. But I need more hands to do this job. If I played the fish off the left side of the boat, I'd have a better chance, but I keep trying to bring it around into the view of the camera so you folks out there in video land can get a closer look.
this fish might not be around for long.
It dives under a sunken log, works its way loose, and then dives right into my churning propeller.
Poor Rod sure takes a beating. Uh-oh, we got counter wood. I can't stop it. Come on, buddy. Got it, my throat.
Well, I might have to change the name of this lake from the Dead Sea to the Fishless Sea. The fish are here, I just can't get them into a net.
Now I'm looking straight up the creek mouth, which is flooded 6 feet deeper than it was the other day. There could be fish anywhere up this channel today. Silver bright cohos cruising around and flirting with each other, or Searun cuts waiting for the action to start. This lake is all about timing. It's big and it's wild and it's easy to get skunked. There are lots of places that don't have fish, especially nowadays. And the places where you find fish today might not have any fish next week or tomorrow. You have to find them first. Then they're pretty easy to fool because they've maybe never seen a lure before in their whole life. Here I'm fishing only a few hundred meters from the busy Tofino Highway, but few people bother to fish here. Why bother? It's the Dead Sea. But there's nobody home today until I get up almost to the end where the creek comes out of the forest. There's another fish. It's tight quarters in here, and the fish plows into the bushes and gets snagged. I have to turn on the motor and get a different angle.
I may have to stop calling this the Dead Sea.
Another shining silver jack coho. This is about as tiny as it gets in the world of adult spawning salmon. This fish is a tribute to downsizing. This is what government budgets would look like in a perfect world of free trade. This poor little guy is going to be competing for the affection of the hottest chicks in all of Kennedy. And he will be competing against muscle-bound studs maybe 10 or 20 times as big as he is. Good luck, pal. Let's see if there are any more fish around. There's another one. This one's a little bit bigger, and it's a cutthroat. And it keeps trying to dive into the bushes again. You used to be able to keep 4 salmon per day in Kennedy Lake, plus 4 trout. I used to keep my limit once a year, and then put them in the smoker. But nowadays it's catch and release only for salmon. You're allowed to keep 4 trout per day. Watch how easy the spinner slips out of the fish's mouth. Too bad it also slips out just as easy when the fish is jumping on the end of your line. But that's life with single barbless. At least this one got a chance to pose for the Basstravaganza.
I may have to stop calling this the Dead Sea.
Another Kennedy Lake Searun cut. And another notch in the barrel of Andre Mulenart's gun. I've just about used up my casts in here. There's one chance left, but it will take a perfect cast to pull it off. After I die, I plan to challenge Fred Arbogast. We'll see who can knock the ash off people's cigarettes. I don't know if they allow that kind of thing in heaven, and I don't know if either of us will ever get there. But I don't have time to ponder that mystery right now. I have to reel in another fish. These little jacks are so silver bright today. They obviously came fresh out of the ocean after the big rain we just had.
I may have to stop calling this the Dead Sea.
In another week, they'll still be around, but the silver color will fade to gunmetal gray, and then to a dull red. But today they're like polished chrome. I used to be a log salvager in a previous lifetime.
I was lucky the last time out. If you leave a boat like this on the beach in an exposed location, It may fill with rain and sink overnight, or get smashed into a crumpled wreck by big waves. I need to tow a couple drift logs out of my parking spot while they're floating.
Brucey probably never even got one this big.
It looks like I'm going to get rained out again. That's life on the wet coast. Bowline, the beachcomber's knot that never pulls tight.
Haul on the bowline, we sang that melody. I also spent 3 years working as a logger on an island in this very lake, and I towed big log booms of our wood across it.
Well, I got my chores done. My campsite is prepped and my parking area is clear. Now I can return and park safely overnight if the weather ever gets nice. And I said goodbye to my ancient old friend, the tree. But the weather is taking another turn for the worse. I'm going to head back to the ramp and get my boat off this ugly lake while I still can. We didn't catch many fish on this episode, and we could not catch a break with the weather. But I proved that this is not a totally dead sea. It can be a challenging place to fish. It's big and shallow and deep and wild. The fish are here today and gone tomorrow. And the weather can be downright scary. But I've tried to give viewers a taste of what this big lake is all about. But when the wind dies down and the sun comes out, it is a place like no other. It's easy for me to see why the Clayoquot Nation used this lake as their hideout whenever trouble appeared, in the form of marauding neighboring tribes or European explorers. I'll be back when the weather improves, and I'll do some exploring myself. And so will you if you keep watching the Basstravaganza. But next time, we'll try bass fishing again. And things might get a little bit weird.